The scent of hops and history was the first thing that greeted Elara Vance as she pushed open the heavy oak door of the Alder's Heart Brewery. It was a smell woven into the very fabric of her childhood, a rich, earthy aroma of malt, a sharp, spicy tang of yeast, and a faint, sweet ghost of fermenting barley. It was the scent of her father, of long afternoons spent watching the great copper kettles steam, of laughter echoing in the vaulted stone cellars. Now, it was the scent of her inheritance, and it was heavy with the weight of his absence. The solicitor's words, delivered just 3 days prior in a sterile, dusty office, still rang in her ears. The entirety of the Alder's Heart Brewery, its assets, trademarks, and operations, passes to you, Miss Vance. Your father was most specific. Specific. That was one word for it. In the eyes of London's high society in 1892, it was nothing short of scandalous. A brewery, a thriving, profitable business, left not to a son or a male cousin or even the trusted foreman, but to a daughter. A 24-year-old woman whose proper domain was supposed to be the drawing room, not the brew house. Miss Elara. The voice was a low rumble, pulling her from her thoughts. Silas Croft, the brewery's foreman for 3 decades, stood before her, his cap in his gnarled hands. His face, weathered like old leather, was etched with a sympathy that felt suffocating. The men, they're worried. They heard about the will. They're wondering what's to become of them, of this place. The brewery will continue, Mr. Croft, as my father intended, Elara said, her voice steadier than she felt. She swept her gaze across the main hall, taking in the gleaming vats, the labyrinth of pipes, the bustling workers who paused to cast furtive, uncertain glances her way. My father's legacy is safe. Is it? A new, colder voice cut through the humid air. Elara turned to see her uncle, Alder Vance, descending the wrought iron staircase from the offices. He was a man carved from polished marble and ambition, his suit immaculate, his silvering hair perfectly coiffed. He had always been a presence in the brewery's financial matters, the city man who handled the ledgers while her father, Arthur, handled the soul of the brew. Uncle Alder, Elara acknowledged, her posture straightening. My dear, grieving girl, he began, his tone dripping with a condescension that made her jaw tighten. This is all too much for you. The burden of this factory, is no place for a woman of your standing. The vulgarity of commerce, the coarseness of the workers. Arthur's sentimentality has blinded him to reality. You must see that. The reality I see, uncle, is that my father left this brewery to me, Elara replied, her knuckles white as she clenched her skirts. He believed I could run it. Alder gave a short, humorless laugh. Run it? My dear, you can barely tell a mash tun from a fermentation lock. This is a business, not a dollhouse. There are contracts, suppliers, unions, competitors who would swallow this place whole if they sensed a moment of weakness. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Let me handle the transition. I can find a buyer, a good one. You'll be a wealthy woman, free to marry well and live a comfortable life, as you should. This struggle is beneath you. The words were a physical blow. Beneath you. They were the same words society had whispered about her mother, a woman of intellect and spirit who had died too young, crushed by the very conventions she had quietly defied. Elara felt a fire ignite in her chest, a spark of her father's stubbornness and her mother's defiance. This struggle, uncle, is my birthright, she said, her voice clear and carrying in the vast hall. And I will not be selling. Not today. Not ever. Alder's face hardened, the mask of avuncular concern slipping to reveal the cold steel beneath. A foolish sentiment, Elara. Sentiment has no place in business. You will learn that to your cost. He turned on his heel and strode away, his footsteps echoing with finality. The confrontation left her trembling, but resolute. She spent the rest of the day in her father's old office, surrounded by ledgers she only half understood and machinery blueprints that looked like arcane diagrams. The sheer scale of the operation was daunting. The Alder's Heart was successful, Yes, but its methods were traditional, its recipes unchanged for 50 years. The world was changing. New, lighter beers from the continent were gaining popularity. Her father had been a master of the old ways, but was that enough for the future? As dusk painted the grimy windows in shades of orange and gray, Silas Croft knocked tentatively on the door. "Miss Elara, there's a man to see you. A Mr. Finian Shaw. He's a brewer. Says he had correspondence with your father." The name was unfamiliar. "Send him in, Mr. Croft." The man who entered was unlike any brewer Elara had ever seen. He was young, perhaps in his early 30s, with unruly chestnut hair and intelligent eyes the color of the ale they produced. He wore a practical, though clean, workman's shirt and trousers, and he carried no air of subservience. In his hands was a small, corked stoneware bottle. "Miss Vance," he said, his voice a warm baritone, "my condolences on your loss. Your father was a great man, a titan of tradition." "Thank you, Mr. Shaw. How did you know my father?" "Through letters, mostly," Finian explained, placing the bottle on the desk. "I admired his work, but I wrote to him about new possibilities. I've been studying on the continent, in Bavaria, their methods, their ingredients. It's a revolution in a glass." Elara gestured for him to continue, her curiosity piqued. "Your father was politely dismissive," Finian said with a wry smile. "He believed the English palate was loyal to its bitters and porters. But I believe there is a market for something different. Something cleaner, brighter, more consistent. Using science, not just art." He pushed the bottle toward her. "This is a lager. I brewed it myself, using a bottom-fermenting yeast strain and cold storage. It's the future, Miss Vance." Elara uncorked the bottle. The aroma was unlike anything she knew. Crisp, slightly floral, with a clean, bready note. She took a tentative sip. It was light, effervescent, and refreshing, a stark contrast to the heavy, complex Alash the Alder's heart was famous for. It was undeniably delicious, and it was terrifying. "It's very good," she admitted. "But my uncle believes this brewery is on the verge of collapse because a woman is at its helm. To change our entire identity now, it would be seen as confirmation of his fears, as weakness." Finian leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Or," he countered, "it could be seen as strength, as vision. The greatest risk is to take no risk at all, Miss Vance. Your father built this place on quality. I am proposing we build its future on quality and innovation." He was offering exactly what she needed, a way forward, a new path. But he was also asking her to gamble her entire inheritance on an unproven man and a foreign style of beer. She looked from his earnest, passionate face to the ledger books filled with her father's familiar, sprawling script. The safe past versus the uncertain future. "The men will not like it," she said softly. "They are loyal to my father's ways." "Then we must win them over," Finian replied, "or find new men. The question is, Miss Vance, do you wish to be a custodian of a museum or an architect of the future?" The question hung in the air, as potent and intoxicating as the brew he had brought. Elara looked out the window at the gaslights beginning to flicker on in the London streets. She thought of her uncle's cold ultimatum and the expectant, fearful eyes of the workers. She thought of her father's legacy, not as a monument to be preserved, but as a seed to be nurtured. She picked up the bottle of lager and took another, longer drink. "Mr. Shaw," she said, a new determination settling in her soul. "You have one vat. One. Prove to me that your revolution is worth the battle it will undoubtedly cause." A slow, brilliant smile spread across Finian Shaw's face. "One vat is all I need, Miss Vance." The following weeks were a whirlwind of conflict and clandestine activity. Elara's days were consumed by a dual battle, mastering the intricate dance of the brewery's finances and management, and overseeing Finian Shaw's experiment, which she kept hidden from her uncle and most of the senior staff. Her uncle, Alistair, had not been idle. He used his influence to sow doubt among their suppliers, suggesting the brewery's credit might soon be unstable. He held whispered conversations with the master cooper and the head maltster, men set in their ways who viewed any change as heresy. The atmosphere in the brewery grew thick with tension, a palpable divide forming between those loyal to Elara and those who saw Alistair as the voice of masculine reason. Elara found her sanctuary in the small, disused fermenting cellar where Finian had set up his operation. It was a world away from the main hall's roaring fires and steam. Here, the air was cool, almost cold, and the only sound was the gentle, patient bubbling of the lager in its solitary vat. "It's a slow process," Finian explained one afternoon, as they watched the steady drip from the cooling coil. "Unlike ale yeast that works quickly at room temperature, this yeast works slowly in the cold. It requires patience. But that patience is rewarded with a clarity and stability that ale can rarely achieve." He was a patient teacher, explaining the science behind the art, the importance of water chemistry, the precise control of temperature, the role of the noble hops he'd imported at great personal expense. Elara, who had learned about brewing through osmosis and folklore, found her mind expanding. This wasn't just a craft, it was a science. "My father always said a brewer's most important tool was his palate," she mused, watching him take a hydrometer reading. "He wasn't wrong," Finian said, not looking up from his notes. "But his palate was guided by generations of tradition. Mine is guided by that, and by this." He tapped the glass instrument. "Tradition tells us what to do. Science can help us understand why it works and how to do it better, more consistently." Their partnership, born of necessity, began to deepen into a genuine friendship and a meeting of minds. Elara brought her intimate knowledge of the brewery's workforce and her sharp business acumen, honed by frantic study. Finian brought his revolutionary ideas and a quiet, unshakable confidence. They were an unlikely alliance, the society heiress and the radical brewer. But within the stone walls of the cold cellar, they built a fortress of shared purpose. The peace was shattered the day Alistair discovered the hidden cellar. He stormed in, his face a mask of thunder, followed by a scowling Hamish, the head maltster. "What is the meaning of this, Elara? A clandestine operation? Wasting resources on this folly?" He gestured dismissively at Finian's setup. "It is not a folly, uncle," Elara said, stepping between him and the precious vat. "It is research and development. Something every successful business must undertake." "Research," Alistair sneered, picking up a bag of the imported hops and sniffing it with contempt. "Smells like failure and wasted capital to me. And you," he turned his venom on Finian, "you are a charlatan, filling my niece's head with nonsense. You are dismissed. Collect your wages and get out." "You cannot dismiss him." Elara's voice cut through the cold air, sharp as a shard of ice. "I am the proprietor of the Alder's Heart. I hired Mr. Shaw, and only I could dismiss him." The challenge hung in the air. It was the first time she had openly, directly defied his authority in front of the workers. Hamish looked shocked. Alistair's eyes narrowed to slits. "You are a child playing at business," he hissed, stepping so close she could smell the cloying scent of his pomade. "You are dragging your father's good name through the mud. I will not stand by and watch you destroy everything he built." "Then don't stand by," Elara retorted, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Leave. Your services as an advisor are no longer required." For a long, terrifying moment, she thought he might strike her. The fury in his eyes was primal. Then he regained control, smoothing his waistcoat with a jerk of his hands. "This is not over, Elara," he promised, his voice low and deadly. "You have declared war on family, on tradition, on common sense. You will lose. And when you do, you will come crawling back to me, and I will sell this place for scrap." He turned and swept out, Hamish trailing in his wake. Elara's legs felt weak. She leaned against the cool stone wall, breathing heavily. "I've made an enemy of him," she whispered. Finian moved to her side, his presence a steadying force. "No," he said quietly. You've revealed the enemy he always was. The battle was always coming, Elara. You've just chosen the ground. He gestured to the quietly bubbling vat. And we have our secret weapon. The lager, when it was finally ready, was a revelation. It was golden and brilliantly clear, with a snowy white head that lingered. The aroma was clean and inviting, and the taste was a perfect balance of subtle malt and delicate hop bitterness, finishing crisp and refreshing. Elara tasted it and felt a surge of hope so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. It was more than just a new beer, it was validation. It was proof that her vision and Finian's had merit. "We'll call it Alder's Gold," she declared, and Finian nodded his approval. Their triumph was short-lived. Alistair's war began in earnest. The next morning, a stream of workers, the head maltster, the head cooper, and a dozen of the most experienced brewers, did not show up for their shifts. They had resigned en masse, lured away by offers from a rival brewery, as she later discovered, with her uncle's fingerprints all over the scheme. The Alder's heart was crippled. Production ground to a halt. The remaining workers were panicked. Elara stood in the eerily quiet main hall, the silence a mockery of its usual vibrant hum. Despair threatened to consume her. This was it. This was how she failed. "We're not finished," Finian said, his voice firm. He had gathered the remaining skeleton crew, younger men, apprentices, and those whose loyalty to Arthur Vance's memory outweighed Alistair's promises. "We are smaller, but we are nimble, and we are united." It was Finian's moment to shine. He worked tirelessly, training the green crew, managing multiple stations himself, his knowledge proving as practical as it was theoretical. Elara, meanwhile, rolled up her sleeves. She discarded her fine dresses for practical wool skirts and simple blouses. She worked alongside the men, hauling sacks of grain, learning to scrub the vats, showing them through action, not just words, that she was not a distant owner, but a fellow laborer in the fight for survival. Her hands grew raw, her back ached, but with each passing day, she earned a new measure of respect. The men saw her determination, her refusal to yield. They saw the quality of the Alder's Gold she and Finian had created. The crisis, instead of breaking them, forged a new, fiercer loyalty. The turning point came with the annual London Brewers Exhibition. It was the most prestigious event in the industry, where reputations were made and broken. Alistair, now openly managing a rival brewery, would be there, no doubt expecting to witness the Alder's Heart's final, humiliating gasp. "We have to go," Elara insisted. "We have to show the world we're still here, and we have something new to offer." "We don't have the volume to supply the orders we might get," Finian cautioned. "We don't need volume yet," Elara countered, a daring plan forming in her mind. "We need attention. We need to create a legend." They arrived at the exhibition as underdogs. The Alder's Heart booth was modest, surrounded by the grandiose displays of their competitors, including Alistair's, which was bustling with people. Elara, in a simple but elegant dress, stood behind a small table where only 2 beers were served. Their classic Alder's Heart Porter and the new, mysterious Alder's Gold, served in delicate glass tumblers to showcase its clarity. At first, they were ignored. The established masters and merchants passed them by, their eyes sliding over the small booth. Then a renowned critic, a man known for his brutal honesty and exquisite palate, paused. Intrigued by the golden beer, he took a glass of Alder's Gold. He sipped. He paused. He sipped again, his eyes widening. He finished the glass in silence, then turned to Elara. "Who is the master brewer behind this?" he asked, his voice hushed. Elara did not hesitate. She placed a hand on Finian's arm, drawing him forward. "This is Mr. Finian Shaw, our master brewer. The recipe and process are his." Then she looked the critic directly in the eye. "And I am Elara Vance, the owner of the Alder's Heart. We brewed this together." The critic looked from her resolute face to Finian's confident one, and then back to the empty glass. He then asked for a taste of the porter, noting its flawless quality. The next day, his column was published. It praised the porter as a benchmark of the style, but it was the Alder's Gold that received his highest acclaim. He called it a glimpse into the future of British brewing and ended with a powerful line. The Alder's heart is in the most capable of hands, those of a visionary brewer and a proprietress of singular courage and intellect. Miss Vance is not merely inheriting a legacy, she is building one. The effect was electric. Their small booth was suddenly the most crowded at the exhibition. Orders small at first, then larger came flooding in. They were offers of investment, of distribution. The narrative had flipped. Elara was no longer the doomed daughter out of her depth. She was the bold innovator, the talk of London. From across the hall, she locked eyes with her uncle, Alistair. His face was a pale mask of pure, undiluted fury. He had thrown his worst at her, and she had not only weathered it, she had emerged stronger, more successful, and more independent than ever. In his eyes, she saw the bitter knowledge that he had lost. The battle for the Alder's heart was over. She had won. Victory was sweet, but it was not the end of the story. It was a new beginning. In the months that followed, the Alder's heart underwent a renaissance. With the influx of capital and confidence, Elara and Finian expanded carefully. They hired new workers, blending the old guard who had returned, chastened, with new talent eager to be part of the brewery's exciting new chapter. Alder's Gold became a sensation, its popularity proving that the British palate was ready for change. One evening, long after the last worker had gone home, Elara and Finian stood in the main hall, now once again filled with the vibrant, productive noise of industry. The scent of hops and history remained, but it was now joined by the bright, promising aroma of their new creation. "We did it," Elara said, the words filled with a profound, quiet joy. "We actually did it." "You did it," Finian corrected gently, turning to her. His face, lit by the soft glow of the gaslights, was earnest. "I provided a tool, Elara, but you were the one who had the courage to wield it. You fought your family, your society, and your own doubts. I have never admired anyone more." The space between them seemed to shrink, charged with an emotion that had been growing for months, nurtured in cold cellars, and forged in the heat of battle. The professional respect and friendship had quietly, inevitably, bloomed into something deeper. "I could not have done any of it without you, Finian," she whispered. "You saw a partner when everyone else saw a puppet." He reached out, his hand, callous from work, gently covering hers. "Elara." He never finished the sentence. He didn't need to. The look in his eyes said everything. And when he leaned in and she met him halfway, the kiss was not a sudden passion, but a long-awaited conclusion. It tasted of hope, of partnership, of a future they would build together on their own terms. 5 years later, the Alder's Heart Brewery was now the largest independent brewery in London, renowned for its perfect traditional Alesh and its innovative, award-winning lagers. Elara Vance, once a society scandal, was now a respected business leader, often consulted on matters of trade and industry. She walked through the bustling halls, her hand resting lightly on her slightly rounded abdomen. In her office, Finian was waiting for her, a letter in his hand and a smile on his face. "Another offer," he said, waving the paper. "This one from America. They want to import Alder's Gold." Elara smiled, coming to stand beside him. She looked out of their office window, down into the heart of the brewery they had saved and rebuilt and loved. It was no longer just her father's legacy. It was theirs. "Tell them we'll consider it," she said. She took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. The future stretched out before them, as bright and full of promise as the golden beer that had carried them there. The mistress of the brewery and her master brewer had not only kept the heart of the place beating, they had given it a new, vibrant, and enduring rhythm.